Hey y'all, hey, we're back for another review of Sisters, and we are on season 9, episode 14, entitled Pull Up On Me. So last week, Karen told Aaron that she feels like a change of scenery, like literal change of scenery, is what's going to help her get her mind clear, maybe help her get over her postpartum, and all the other stuff. So we're picking back up with that, and we're getting into Aaron taking it personal. So Aaron can't believe that Karen wants to leave Atlanta. He thinks that she only wants to leave him behind and going about her life in another city. And she tells him, like, listen, I really need the hard reset and a new environment. It's what is going to help. She thinks that this move is what's going to help her grow through what she's going through. Understandable. And then so this is a dialogue. We go back and forth. Of course, we're going to go through the whole thing. And he thinks that she's running away from her problems, which some things don't resonate with me, because if there's a problem, sometimes it's effective to get away from it. I ain't saying run, but walk, jog, whatever you got to do to get away from the situation. I don't really see where running away is a problem more, in some instances. And in this case, she might not be running. Like I said, she might just be walking. Anyway, and she tells him, like, listen, that's not true. She knows that the problems will still exist in another zip code and another area code, no problems, whatever. I just feel like, that's going to kind of help me in my journey. He thinks that this whole thing is crazy and it's not a decision that she should have made on her own. That and where the problem lies. On her own. Y'all are not married. Y'all have a child that y'all share. Y'all's situation is still up in the air as well. I think he's offended because he's been there through this integral part of her life, being, the trauma that she had with the baby and losing the babies and some other things that he's been there for. He's been there for consistently. I don't think that. Okay. Let me back it up, because I know that people are going to say, oh, well, she's her child's father and he should have a say-so in where she lives. You should have an opinion. You shouldn't have a decision, because that's a grown person that can make her own decisions. Now, whether they're sound in her current state of being, not really sure, but generally speaking, I don't think because you have a child with someone means you stay within close proximity to that person for their convenience. There's a conversation had that, of course, that has to happen. Again, coming from somebody from somebody with kids, I don't know the intimate details, but if my baby daddy wanted to move to another city, country, state, provision, ward, wherever he wants to go, that's your business. We just need to figure out how our child is not going to go lacking. That's just my thoughts. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Either way, she's trying to express what she's going through, and he's kind of countering all of her thoughts with, oh, well, basically like what about Aaron aspect of it, which is fair, right? And she tells him, like, listen, if you just let me express myself, it is not that I wanted to run away and leave you and Faith behind. I want us to go, me, you, and Faith, for this new fresh start. And then so he brings up the, why do you want to leave your support system? And she's like, I hear what you're saying, but they will have to understand. And then he thinks that, maybe if this feeling is temporary and what you're feeling does not go away in the new location, where does that leave us? She was like, listen, I understand. I don't have the answers right now. I just feel like this is what I need to do. Again, fair enough. And then he asked her, like, hey, if it was Zach's baby that was not lost, so if Forever had lived and Faith had passed away, would you be feeling the same way? Oh, and that's how we open the show out, right? So we'll come back to that. In the meantime, there was something I meant to say. He brings up the support system. I think it is a legitimate concern and a considerable thought. I'm sorry, y'all. I had a few espresso martinis, so my thoughts I'm a little bit jittery, so just go ahead and take that, with a grain of salt. Either way, he brings it up, and I understand what he is saying, but again, support system should not be your decision making when it comes to doing what's best, what you think is best for your mental. Even if it is a wrong decision, it is your decision to live with. If you feel like you need to move, c'est la vie. Oh, well, if you got to come back home, also, c'est la vie. You did what you thought was best. That's my thoughts on it. Anyway, we see Zach, and he's showing up at the office because he had a problem with Fatima the night before about her and Karen being her trusted person in that moment, blah, 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 blah. He shows up at the office to take accountability for his outburst the night before about Karen and about the midwife situation. And Fatima agrees to take... he agrees to take Fatima's lead on what she decides for the baby. He was just trying to, come up with a plan ahead without talking to her first. She apologizes for not telling him about the Karen situation, even though I wouldn't apologize for that, because if that lady trusted me, little side note, I don't know what it is about me, but people trust me with a lot of information and tea and secrets and things that I'll never, ever, ever repeat to this day. And even if you got a husband and you say, girl, don't tell my husband, never to be spoken of again. That man can come to me right now and ask me, hey, did Tanika say something about this? You gonna have to take that up with Tanika, sir. I don't know nothing about it. If that lady said don't say nothing, it just is what it is. You don't break people's trust. I don't care who it is too. If it ain't about life, life or death, it just is what it is. Now, if Tanika had said, hey girl, I'm about to unlie me, my husband, and everybody on this side of the Chattahoochee River, I'm gonna go ahead and go. I'm gonna have to tell somebody. I'm gonna bring somebody in. But anything outside of that, I don't owe nobody no information. Don't matter who they are to your life. Anyway, she apologizes for not telling him about it, and apologizes for how she felt about Cameron losing the baby, even though she feels like, I still feel how I feel, but I could have found a better way to express what I feel about the situation. And he goes on to admit, like, yeah, because I kind of felt the same way deep down inside. He alluded to that. I picked that up. Maybe I mistook that. Y'all let me know if y'all feel the same way in the comments or what y'all picked up. But I feel like he kind of felt the same way as well, because this thing has been toxic and tumultuous. So bringing a child into that would have been another layer of angst that everybody would have had to deal with. So everybody is sad and everybody misses baby forever. I don't want to call it a blessing in disguise, but yeah. All right. So we go on and we see Leonard, and he's not being ushered out, but he has his little white box with all his belongings in, and he's going out because he has been let go. Mr. Leonard is the guy that got everything going with Danny and Tony, and he was in that. So it does not hurt my feelings to see him being fired. And Danny's like, well, what's going on? And he tells Danny that the company is going through budget cuts and some people have been laid off, and he happened to be one of the people that were caught up in that. And Danny's like, okay, that makes sense. That's why everybody at the job is kind of uptight. Everybody's sitting around in anticipation of who's going to get the chopping block next, and what's going to happen. And Danny also tells Leonard, like, hey, hold your head or whatever, but I wouldn't go out without a fight. And so he's just in like F-Hire Airlines, blah, 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 blah. And of course, Danny is just hyping him up because, sir, you're already fired. Like, what's the point of wasting energy? Sure. Andy calls Sabrina to complain about Danny charging her up. So the night before, we know that Gary showed up at the townhouse, and Danny walked in, and she's like, well, what you doing? What you doing with him? Valid question, because girl, after all he put you through, what are we talking about? What is there to talk about? And so she calls Sabrina. She's like, girl, I already know I feel a way about Danny charging me up about it. I know you feel the same way. And Sabrina like, after everything Gary put me, you, she, everybody else through, I feel where Danny's coming from. Maybe I wouldn't have approached it that way, but I kind of feel like Danny as well, because we know we get real worried and worked up anytime you're within close proximity to Gary, because it's some BS to follow soon behind. So I understand. And she was like, yeah, I understand, but y'all gotta give him credit. She was like, yeah, girl, but you also lied. Like, why would you not be lying about you and Gary when you lied about you and Dr. Vine? Ooh. Hey, just saying. And she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, girl, I know you had lunch with Dr. Vine. All you had to do was tell me that, or dinner or whatever she ran into her at. And she's like, oh, okay. I was trying to keep it discreet, with the case and all the other stuff coming up. But the moral of the story was, girl, it's hard to believe one thing independent of the other when we know how you operate when it comes to these men. All right. Okay. So we go back over to Karen and Aaron, and we're still talking about this potential move. And she tells Aaron that she would probably feel, she would have been more tied to Atlanta if Zach's baby was the one that lived, right? Because she would have felt stuck there if she had to co-parent with Zach. So again, blessing in disguise, don't want to call it that, but that's the language that I have right now. Which is fair enough, because as a parent, I ain't nobody's mama, nobody's parent, right? But I can understand you don't want to go off to Zanzibar and your child is stuck in Atlanta and you have to co-parent with a person. I understand it. I think that there's a way to do it and it becomes more difficult. Don't think that I don't have the foresight to see that. But she would have felt more stuck or more obligated, which some parents do. They feel like they have to be, especially if that parent is a good parent and that parent is in their child's lives, even though you guys are not together. I can see where that can be something else to mull over in the list of things that you would have had to think about before making a move. I got that part. I understand it. But she assures him that this potential move has nothing to do with Zach. I, love him to death dearly, but I don't have that. I'm not in love with him. That's not what it is. And so she has to kind of reaffirm Aaron that she does not want Zach and that she loves him. And she's so glad that he's the father of faith and appreciates him for everything he's done for her in her time of need. All this other stuff. She has to go back through this, whether he believes it or not. And she says whether he believes it or not because the Zach thing is kind of a topic that keeps coming up when it comes to Aaron and Karen. Of course, we're a few days removed from everything, 9 months removed from everything. We're still kind of in the throes of separating this thing, which you overheard the conversation on the baby monitor between Zach and Karen where they kind of did their come to Jesus and their airing out their grievances with each other and their apologies and said that they were okay to move on, and they both affirmed that, hey, I got somebody, you got somebody, we had our time, we had our ups and our downs, you don't got no smoke with me, so it's time to let that go. So these feelings keep coming up, like I said, and she was like, just know I'm not worried about Zach, and let's just add this to the list of things that we can leave behind in Atlanta. And she was, and he's like, oh, is that the reason? He's like, she said, no, I said list of things. Zach, we can leave that behind. Those feelings that I may or may not have had for him, can leave him behind. Me almost losing my life, me losing baby forever. There's a lot of things that have soured Karen against Atlanta, where she is, and it might be time to go. And she was like, listen, this ain't even just about me. I'm asking you to accompany me in the new location, which means adding to the list your ex-wife, her taking her life on, kind of what we had going on, her brother, coming after me, the fire at the hair salon, Gary almost being taken off the map, like all of this traumatic stuff that has happened and happened and happened and happened. All of these things can be left in Atlanta. Now they can't be left out of your mind, but I see what she's saying. And he thinks that she's focusing only on the bad stuff that's happened in Atlanta. Maybe she needs to think of some positive. And she's like, I understand, but it all just feels heavy on me. And even the business. She was like, even with that, like Pam, I'm talking to Pam, and I'm not pouring into that as much as I would have liked to. Like, I'm even willing to give that up. Like, she's letting her know, like, hey, I'm basically balls to the walls on this get the hell out of Atlanta train. And he reminds her of all her positive traits and, all of her attributes. She's like, cool. But all that can go in my carry-on, big dog. Like, all that can go with me to the airport. And all of that can also transition with me to the next location. So everything he's trying to do to low-key convince her to stay, she's kind of like, yep, all that can happen in the new space. And he's also worried, like, hey, I understand, but what if, like, this postpartum stuff and everything that you're going through does not lighten in the new location? Or are we going to be in a situation where we have to keep moving? If this feeling doesn't pass, what happens? And I'll give him that. Legit concern, legit question. I just think that you never know. Some things you just kind of have to do to see how they work out in the grand scheme. Again, if we got to come home, I feel like they can always go home. That's just what I think. Like, y'all are both from there, if I'm not mistaken. Can't confirm where Aaron is from, but I'm just going to assume he's from Atlanta. You can always go home. And the great thing about venturing out is there's a safety net knowing that you can always go home. When you're an adult, you can always go home under your own terms, on your own dime. Of course, when you're younger, you can maybe have some help, which is a blessing because, girl, I ain't never had that luxury, but whatever. Moving on. Danny's cousin, Dr. Rock, goes to the bank to talk to Sabrina, and he apologizes for lying about his job and his jail time, but he does confront her, and he's like, people be lying on those apps or whatever, but you also don't give me too much because you didn't tell me about your jail time as well. And she's like, oh, that was a different circumstance. She didn't get into it, but she was like, oh, that was different. Okay, girl, but everybody had to get booked and fingerprinted. It's just all I'm saying. And he's like, okay, cool. Like, I apologize. I still want to kick it with you. I'm giving whenever you need it type vibes. And he's like, listen, let's just agree. No more lies between us. We don't need a relationship or whatever, but I can come by and, drop that thing off. I drop in, do what I got to do. Look, what they used to call it? Booty call. A little booty call situation. Whenever you need, hit me up. And, that's that. All right. So the HR lady is talking to, HR lady, Miss Brown, is talking to Danny, and she's trying to, tell her. And Danny's doing everything to not hear this lady out. She's talking about, the white man holding them down. Girl, what's the weather like? Hey, how your mom and them? Everything for this lady to not tell her, girl, you've been a part of the layoffs. And Miss Brown's like, girl, if you let me talk, I can let you know, hey, you're not being laid off, girl. Your hours are just being cut. I guess they have some financial woes down to the higher airlines. And she's like, girl, we're gonna have to cut your hours. I apologize for the inconvenience, but you're not being fired. No worries. So I was being reduced, but she did not get fired. Congratulations. I thought they was gonna give her Tony's old position, but whatever. All right. Mr. Chaz, the basketball player, he shows up at the office. Of course, Zach is still there, and so they getting into the little pushing match or whatever. And so Fatima has to step in and handle the situation. And she tells Zach, listen, I got it. I got this one. And she tells Chaz, hey, didn't I just give you the boundary earlier? Don't just be popping up at my job, at my house, all these places. What's up? And he was like, oh, I just stopped by to talk business. You ain't make no appointment or nothing like that. And he's like, yeah, but he's still I felt bad about our last interaction, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, listen, I don't know what the weird obsession is and your inability to follow my guidelines and adhere to my boundaries. But since you can't respect said boundaries, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go as a client. Just don't even worry about it. This is becoming too much. You keep disrespecting me and my fiance. I'm gonna go ahead and let you go as a client. And he was like, girl, you gonna regret that. He's the macho man, blah, 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 blah. So hopefully he doesn't take it out on her and all the basketball players that came to her for the guidance and the counsel. He convinces them to go somewhere else. It's a big risk, but I guess she had to do what she had to do. I don't know. I'm conflicted because I don't feel as if she set the boundary hard, soon, and fast enough. She really only set the hard, fast boundary the night prior when he showed up at her house, because he said the last interaction was weird and he was trying to make sure she was okay, and he came back to get the purse because he knew that it caused a problem, which sounds honorable. But you also showed up with armed security, but Zach had already popped up on you at this faux business meeting, with the bravado. So do I blame you? I'm not sure. I'm not sure of Chaz's true motives, but also he's a millionaire basketball player. You may also just be trying to keep pushing the boundary to see if a team is going to let it down because you're this rich basketball player that's used to getting what you want. So I don't know who's right in that situation or who's the most right, the least amount of wrong. Y'all let me know in the comments. I'm still not sure. Okay. Aaron and Karen, they finally talk and they finally agree that they're going to make the move together as a family. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. We see Leonard. Leonard is getting arrested because Danny has encouraged this man to go out with the bang. He was already cussing and fussing on the inside. Now he done went outside and started throwing luggage. He's really, really showing his ass. And he's like, yeah. And Danny's like, well, what the hell's going on? And he's like, yeah, you told me not to be no punk. I'm going out with a bang. And yeah, because they fired us for no reason, and that's not fair. We dedicated so much to this airline. She's like, we? No French, my friend. No French. I still have a job. My hours have been cut a little bit, but whatever. And he's looking like, oop. And oop. So he has been let go, and Danny is still there. And for me, I don't feel bad for Leonard. Such is life. Like, you was too busy being in her and Tony's business. Now you have no business of your own other than going to jail. So congratulations. Zach and Mr. Keys are at the gym and they're talking, and you know, he's just showing a little personality. He came into some money. He's dancing around and Mr. Keys must have observed him from afar. He comes over, he's talking to him. He's like, I think like something about you is familiar. Like, where you from? And Zach is like, you know, all over the place. We moved a lot. He's like, you know, when were you born? Like, what year were you born? He's like, sir, if you trying to steal my identity, don't be asking for the information one question at a time. What we trying to get at? He's like, listen, what's your last name? Which those are security questions, sir. You just get to the meat and potatoes. And he's like, Zachary Taylor. And he's like, oh, I know some Taylors, you know, from out of Atlanta or whatever back in the day. And he asked about somebody. He's like, no, I don't know them. He's like, what about Gladys? And he's like, Gladys? Like, that's my mama. What are you talking about? He tells Zach, like, oh, well, me and your daddy were best friends. I thought he was about to say, I'm your daddy, but that would have been horribly obvious and that would have annoyed me. But no, him and Zach's dad were best friends in another time, in another life. So Zach tells him, like, listen, that's wonderful, that's amazing, but I never met my father, so I don't know how you picked up on it. And he's like, because you look like him, you act like him, like y'all got the same mannerisms, all that other stuff, you just reminded me of him a lot. And Zach is like, okay, like, that's cool, that's fine, but my dad really wasn't about shit. Like, he was a deadbeat. He never really gave a damn about me, so this information is useless to me. And Mr. Keys is like, you know, I did not know that part of him. My apologies. And I appreciate the fact that he apologized for not knowing that side of Zach's dad. Let me tell you why that's important. Well, let me tell you why I think that's important. It's important because think back a couple episodes ago, Andy was trying to tell Mr. Barnes about Dr. Cruz. And Dr. Cruz, Mr. Barnes, whatever the partner's name is, he's like, well, I don't know him to be like that, blah, blah, blah. Like, I would never believe Dr. Cruz would do that, da, da, da. You don't know him as a patient. You were never a patient, so you didn't get that treatment. You're also not black. You're also not a woman. You're also rich. You're also a partner at a firm. You're also his golfing buddy. So, of course, you would not know the evil that somebody is because you're not in a position to receive it, to be a victim of it. Okay? All right. So I appreciated I appreciated Mr. Keys being like, you know, my bad, Zach, I don't know that part of him. And I think, again, that's important because people always give somebody the benefit of the doubt from the lens that they know them. And I'm a big proponent on whatever somebody tells you about me, they right. If they said I'm an angel and I do anything for anybody and, you know, she's amazing, she's wonderful, she can do no wrong, to somebody that's true. But if somebody tell you she's a no-limit soldier, she pushed me down on the ground, she might have hit my mama in the head and slid her wig back, also true. You know, the good and the bad. Somebody, you a villain in somebody's story, you're a savior in somebody's story. All of those things can be true. Duality, right? Okay, so don't be discrediting nobody because of their experience. Their experience of that person is their experience, all right? Okay, all right. So Zach is like, listen, he's kind of lost his little joy that he had because he's being reminded of two people that in this moment he's taken out of his joy. He's been reminded of two people that never did anything for him. So Mr. Keys might know Miss Gladys prior to her addiction or earlier in her life. She might have been a nice lady that made cupcakes and waffle fries for him, but Zach doesn't know those people to be that to him. And so he's like, listen, these are two people who never did anything for me, that never gave a damn about me. So it's nice that you know them, but I don't really know how to process all that you got, you telling me right now. And so Mr. Keys, again, very apologetic. He's like, listen, I'm so sorry about that. Like, I'm willing to buy you dinner to compensate for messing up your day. Again, very, very honorable move because, again, you can drop off your perspective of somebody on somebody else's plate, but that doesn't mean that they're going to receive it and be like, oh, okay. Well, you said she was Betty Crocker and you said my dad was a great person, down to the pool hall, but that's not my experience. So then there's that. So yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. All right, Andy and Dr. Vaughn are just talking and shooting the crap. He came to, I don't know why he showed up at the office. I don't recall. But he showed up and they're just talking and they're kind of low-key flirting, and he ended up going in for the kiss and he's tonguing her down, child, in the middle of this glass room, all glass walls in the office, and Andy's mama shows up. And she was looking at her like, young lady, pull yourself together. And agree. Girl, you are at the office. Y'all can do this another time in another place. And that ends the episode. And we do see a projection for next week being Andy's mama threatening Fatima. Girl, telling Fatima, girl, if you don't get your stuff together, my daughter gonna fire you. You see that line? She jumped right on over it. No, ma'am. You don't talk to me like that. Either way, we'll deal with that next week. What do y'all think about this week's episode? Again, I was probably a little more animated, a little bit off the juice. Espresso martinis, very good. Try them. But let me know what y'all think in the comments, and we could talk about it there. And we'll see what happens in the rest of the season. Either way, that's for season 9, episode 14. Like, comment, share, subscribe, or whatever it is that you feel like doing. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.